Hello and good afternoon. Okay, another edition of Going Up the River Home. And today, what do you think I'm going to be talking about? Let's think about it on the web. Trump, no. Lake effect snow, could, but no. We're going to be talking about what's going to be the talk of the town on weather Twitter the next several months. Yes, the sequel to the movie Twister is actually going to be made. It was announced in a couple of the trade papers over in Hollywood a couple days ago. And also Reed Timmer said that, yeah, I'm actually consulting with them on that to help them out. So, yes, it's being made, it's being scripted. So, what does that mean for everybody? For the fans of the original Twister. First of all, the title, I think, is supposed to be Twisters. Basically is a plural, so hint, who knows, they may be looking to do a CGI twin spinner as the finale, a twin spinner F5 or a multi-vortex F5, Don't be ready for that. As for where you take the plot lines that you left off from last time, well, first off, Rusty's dead. The actor played Rusty's dead, as well as the main character, the TV Met, played by Mr. Paxton. So how do they get played out in all this? My thought? Now, this is going to be, some people haven't speculated, I'm speculating here. What I'm thinking is Mr. Paxton's character, the chaser and then becoming researcher at the end, I think because he died several years later, outside of the film, of course, they're going to have him dying somewhere in the film doing something. Research-wise, I figure what's going to happen is they're going to be having him, as a top researcher, brought in a whole bunch of publicity and a whole bunch of bucks into ye old Muskegee State. And what's going to happen? I bet you his name is going to be in the film as the person that's going to be, I'd say probably the name. They're going to name the atmospheric sciences department building after him. That would probably make the most sense from the storyline. Maybe either that or a studio or some part of the building, but something with that department's going to be linked to him. Now, as for how this is going to be brought up to date. First off, there is going to be probably a kid involved. There's several hints being dropped about that. Now, the question is, Paxton's character is probably the father, but who's the mother? Will it be the first wife, or will it be the second? If you're wondering why I'm coming up with that logic, think about the recent Top Gun sequel, the one I thought that was actually excellent and finished off the plot quite well. That's going to pretty much line my thinking for the movie. So, yeah, we're going to have a son or daughter of the main character of the movie, outside of the tornado. He's going to be part of this. He's going to be part of this whole they're going to be part of this whole sequence. But are they going to make it of the first wife or the second? There has been known to be affairs between professors and stuff in the past. But there's also been, he wanted to get away from her in the worst way. So, which one they draw from is probably going to spur part of the storyline. After that, remember, his first wife was a storm chaser, but his second wife was actually a psychologist, a clinical one, a therapist. So, you're saying, okay, where's that going to take you? Well, given Helen Hunt's character, the way she pretty much went through trauma as a kid, with the whole, tornado traumatizing her to the point she wanted to chase him, and also seeing, having the ex-husband that they, started to have a little interest in back, at the end of the first Twister, having the trauma of that to deal with as well, plus, seeing some of the storms and everything. I mean, let's face it, anybody who's done actual chasing knows the storm damage, viewing some of the storm damage afterwards can be quite traumatizing. So let's not kid ourselves. I think they're going to definitely bring that in, especially if Reed Timmer's involved. But I'm thinking how the second wife gets involved. She's either going to be the head of the psychology department over at Muskogee State, or the other possibility, I mean, this is drawn a little bit from my personal experience. There's going to be a possibility of, with mental health being part of something they watch out for, especially in the weather field these days. Gotta remember that. There's a lot more of that going on these days. So, if you were to take that into account with the second wife, what about the possibility of either her being a therapist, or, given that we're 20 years from when the first movie, 20 plus years, almost 30 years since the first movie took place, what if she's the head of either facility or a counseling group that's contracted with Muskogee State to help with the mental health issues of either college or students or even the professors? And okay, you're not saying she'll actually be the counselor for Helen Hunt's character. Heck no. Helen Hunt, if anything, might be the head of the department over Muskogee State, given the amount of time, given that she was still there at the time as a researcher, and given what she probably ended up getting with that data from the end of the first movie. So it would be, given the amount of time, I could see her being the head of the department. So where that ends up going, there's going to be probably some link to the second wife, but not a direct one. It's going to be an indirect one. The second wife's going to probably be the head of like a counseling service or something like that. But she's going to keep track of the Helen Hunt character indirectly. She's going to, be able to get access to the files, even though she's not supposed to. Psychology ethics there. But given that it's probably her firm that's going to do it, I'm sure she'll try to sneak a peek. She'll have probably a secondary key or something. As for the kid, where does he or she get involved? Well, there's a couple ways. One, dealing with the trauma of losing dad. That hurts anybody. I lost both my parents. So, it hurts. Anybody who says it doesn't is wrong. But as well, what if the daughter ends up getting or the son gets the same instincts as the father, and wants to basically come into Muskogee State as either, I don't think they would be old enough necessarily to be a professor, but what about as a postdoc or as like a doctoral student? That age would definitely be viable at this span. So, end up having to deal with the trauma, finding this out. Pretty much the second wife definitely wouldn't want that. But the daughter ends up doing it anyway, a little bit of a rebellion. And then runs into the first wife, who happens to be the department head. So there's your first conflict. Second, when it comes to updated technology, Helen Hunt's character created those orbs that's supposed to be able to collect the data. That was sort of like the first step in some of the remote sensing. What if we take it to the next step, especially with Reed Timmer involved now? Remember, he's involved in part of the writing. What if they end up getting now into drones and also Muskogee State maybe even owning something like, or being able to use something like, say, a dual pole phased array radar. Now that's unlikely, since Oklahoma doesn't even have one of those. But remember, we are talking movies here, so anything is possible in Hollywood. But having one of those dual pole phased array, and also having some drones that carry some of the payload of the sensors. I mean, that's one part of the story. That's a different part of the story. Remember the first movie, how there was the competing company trying to get their sensors in? What if the new competition is led by, like, say, a relative or a son of the guy from the big corporation who died in the first movie? Just about pure coincidence. That person ends up being like head of an aerospace division or something, but they want to dabble into the drones, and they see weather research, and weather research plus technology is definitely equals big bucks. If anybody who's been to an AMS annual meeting knows that. Just look at some of the booths. But okay, we'll say Reed Timmer's technology, maybe even he gets a guest star, but what if Reed Timmer's technology is sort of like licensed to Muskogee State, and they get like a veto power in who it goes to afterwards? They usually don't exercise it. But now this competing company, owned by the deceased chaser's son, wants to put their own sensors up, and they want to buy out instead of finding their sensors are a little bit inferior no matter what they do. They find out the ones that Reed Timmer's character would do for Muskogee State, they end up being what they actually want. Well, they can't license it right now because, of course, Muskogee State would have a veto power on it. And I'm sure there's no love lost, given what happened from the first movie. So, if the side story to all of it is, we're going to not only we want to buy that license, we want to buy that patent outright, but we can't right now. So, what if there's some type of trying to steal the patent off, or trying to rip it off as part of this? That'd be a good money storyline. Especially given how funding can be within the research community these days. As I said, you got some pretty big bucks, so I wouldn't discount it. Now, on top of that, let's add a little bit of an extra storyline. Let's say the daughter gets into a love affair with daughter or son gets in a love affair with one of the other students, maybe like a son of Rusty or something. It's like a kid of Rusty, or even just one of the other researchers who the researchers from the first movie, you can make them professors in the current movie. It's possible. As to where it all leads, it ends up leading to a finale where you're basically, I'm figuring, probably surrounded by a multi-vortex. Someone gets sucked in, the competition probably gets sucked in one of the satellite vortices, and probably the main vortex they end up dodging, by maybe a couple hundred feet from the point of no return. It's possible. We are in the movies, anything's possible, so yeah, it could happen. And building the plot all around that is feasible. And at the end of all of this, you end up not only with the big tornado epic, but then after that, you have the two wives get together with the kid, and have a big hug session to end it all off, to make it look very peaceful, because you really don't want conflict, especially if there's something psychologically known about the first encounter. As I said, how would you write that? I gave general plot areas you can go. How would you write that? I don't know. It'd be interesting. One other side note, though, you're going to ask, well, where are they going to have this take place? I mean, Oklahoma's Oklahoma. They did the original Twister. Actually, a lot of the footage was from Iowa, not from Oklahoma itself. Well, I have a separate idea of my own here. This is just a personal plug here, based off of basically like a ripped from the headlines type of area. What if you had the chase start, say, near Sioux Falls, stretch from Fargo to Sioux Falls down towards Omaha? Like a big line of cells. We're talking mega outbreak, the type that would spur F5 with satellites. And you have it march across from, say, the segment in question would march across from, say, Sioux Falls, goes towards Mason City, and either Mason City or up between Mankato and the state and Iowa-Minnesota state line. And then, I hate to say it, but bring it up towards the Southern Twin Cities Metro. And you're gonna say, what? Well, there's three big things here that, out of my several years here that you could actually make for some really, really good movie subplot. Excuse me, the dry air is affecting me a little bit. But, hear me out here. In the town of Rosemount, and south of the main metro by about 45 minutes, you have the air traffic control center. I'm not going to detail what's inside, but it's there. It's public knowledge. Anybody can find the building. But you have the air traffic control center in Rosemount. So you have your first strike of the big tornado come close, but not actually hit Rosemount. Then not actually hit that control center in Rosemount. Okay, you're saying, well then what's number two? What's down the line from that? Well, go to the northeast of there. And yes, I know this will be a plug for, good place to put in a plug. But how about in the movie speak, in real life, of course, if this would happen, my God, there'd be a big trouble. But in movie speak, one of the facilities within the business park where I'm at with RBA. I mean, there's several businesses there. There's an Air Products place there. There's a refinery nearby. There's also refineries also to my north. There's a plastics company nearby. I've got Highway 61. So I mean, what if you have the second strike in Cottage Grove? Of course, CGI done, of course. You don't want it to happen in real life, but CGI-wise, it could be simulated pretty decently. And then have the third strike over in Woodbury at the new Amazon facility they have over in the East Metro. Of course, not name it Amazon. You change the name, of course. But you're saying, okay, why those three places in particular? Why? Well, the government facility, that would be a given. But the other two, this is the ripped from the headlines report. Remember the candle factory down, last December, down in Mayfield, Kentucky, and also remember the Amazon place that got hit over in Edwardsville, Illinois, just northeast of St. Louis. By the time the movie comes out, both of the civil suits dealing with the wrongful death civil suits from those particular facilities, they will be getting ready to go to trial by then. By the time that's when, by the time the editing's done and everything else, those civil suits should be in court. So while those trials get started, wouldn't that be a great time to pull out a movie highlighting a couple major facilities getting hit? It would possibly cause some problems with the jury pool, but, hey, publicity is publicity. You gotta think like a Hollywood exec for a minute. How better to get any publicity for a movie is have a plot line ripped right from the headlines. And I know what you're saying. It's like, damn, that would hit a little too close to home. Well, maybe, but the CGI would probably be awesome. Because they're going to whip that up like tomorrow. So, putting that type of visual in, oof. That'd be great. It'll be even better if no one gets killed, unlike real life. Hollywood can make that happen. I don't know if it would, but Hollywood can. You can definitely see the thrilling scenes of trying to get people into the shelters and stuff, that would be definitely good, good filler clip. But, that should be enough plot ideas for, say, a good 2.5 hour movie. Of which, at least the whole weather community is going to watch. That's a given. But, as for everybody else, they might. I could definitely see it. Now, whether they go any of the directions I say, let's face it, I'm not going to bet big on that. Sorry if it's a little rough here. I'm in the portion of Jackson Street they got to repave one of these days. Or relay concrete. They've got to do that. But if they were to do something like that, like what I described, even parts of the plot or most of the plot, it could be interesting. You can actually make a pretty decent movie out of it. I'm sure Hollywood could definitely get some good script writing, get creative. Now, whether they will, I'm not betting too big on it. I'm not betting too big. But you never know. Someone's got to toss the ideas out there. Someone's got to think about it. Someone's got to ruminate about it in public, so why not me? So, with that, give me your ideas in the comments. Please leave your ideas. Where do you think my plot ideas would go? What plot ideas would you put in? If you don't like what I'm thinking for potential plot lines, then you tell me. How do you think it should be written? Especially those of you who viewed the original. How would you do it? Or as they used to say a long time ago in one of the promotions, you make the call. okay, a little side note here. A little side note. Since we are talking storm chasing and stuff, we do have to ask the ultimate question. We do have to ask the question that I'm sure nobody ever wants to ask, but I'm sure I'll ask it anyway. Which group of storm chasers would you least likely want to run into? And I'm talking least likely. The choices I'll give. Choice number 1 from the movie Into the Storm. The crazy yokels who basically are trying to actually get into the tornado, and actually at the final tornado actually do get inside of it, like total jackasses. Number 2. Be over corporate and basically almost unemotional, like the people from the original Twister movie. You know, being the black in the total black Jeeps and everything, and just, you know, basically do it for money and that's it. And number 3. What if the storm chaser was Gilbert Gottfried's character in the movie Sharknado? I mean, and yes, I know I'm bringing Sharknado in this. Maybe I shouldn't, but why not? Let's do it, you know? I mean, it's just a weird, fun, off-the-wall question, so let's hear it. Let's hear it. So, as for anything else, we're almost home. But I look at everything here, and it is fall. You can see the leaves falling up here in Minnesota. And, got down to the 20s this morning. I'll get there tomorrow morning. But, that's just my thoughts. You tell me, what do you think? And last final question. Do you think this Twister sequel will actually be decent, or do you think they're going to screw it up? That's the ultimate question. So with that, I'm home. Thank you. Have a good afternoon. Bye.